welcome to the Southern Illinoisans Prep Talk. We'll discuss our football picks for the opening week of the season. I'm Scott Mees along with Les Winkeler and Pete Spitler. Let's get right into it. First of all, a little bit off-season talk. Have you guys been hearing anything about who are the favorites that you've been hearing in the area down here?
Start with you, Les.
I haven't heard much except the kind of the traditional favorites are supposed to be pretty good. I think Carmi is looking to have a really good year. They were very young, one with a lot of sophomores last year, had an undefeated regular season. I think people are looking for DuQuoin to rebound from the first year in a lot of people's lifetimes that they didn't make the playoffs. Harrisburg, I know, has a good key group back, and there's some of the teams that kind of had some building blocks in place last year that I'm kind of curious about, the Murfreesboros of the world, and of course I forgot to mention Marion too among the perennial powers. I think Marion's going to be right there too. So it shapes up to be a pretty interesting season again. Hopefully we'll be able to have some breakthroughs and some postseason runs, which hasn't happened in Southern Illinois in a long time.
That'd be nice. What's your thoughts, Pete?
I've heard a lot about Harrisburg. I mean, they bring back 10 starters. By far and away from all the coaches I talked to in SIR Ohio, were the preseason conference favorite. Anytime you can bring back Ryan Roper, Cable Henshaw, it's just a well-run program, and I have a feeling this could be the year for Harrisburg.
All right, let's get into it. Week one, Murfreesboro at Carbondale. These are usually a lot of fun and intense rivalry. I think, last year Murphy getting the big win over DuQuoin in the final, week of the regular season opened a lot of eyes. They've got Diamante Bradley back. They should be pretty good, but Carbondale's, a much, much bigger school. I mean, not quite double, but, they're over 1,000. And Carbondale does have the athletes, and their program has been on an upswing since Dan Custer's been there. Your thoughts, Pete?
Obviously, another great year of the Route 13 rivalry. Talking with people around town in Murfreesboro, they are cautiously optimistic about this year's team. They feel that Gary Carter could bring them back to the playoffs, and they got close. I mean, if they had not lost to Carbondale last year, maybe Murfreesboro would have been a playoff team last year. Like you mentioned, they beat DuQuoin, which is a huge win, kept DuQuoin out of the playoffs. And, they finished 4-5, which they hadn't won 4 games since '99. So maybe, the corner was turned, and this is the return to prominence. And I kind of like where Murfreesboro's going on this. I'm going to pick Murfreesboro.
Les, your thoughts?
It's a tough pick, especially the first week of the year. I mean, it's just really hard to get a handle on it. Carbondale lost an awful lot, but they've got their quarterback back. Hoffman played really well down the stretch as a sophomore last year. They've got a pretty good start in the backfield with Bryce Reno Gibson. And Diamante Bradley's a great player for Murfreesboro. I really enjoyed watching him play a couple times last year. But as you mentioned, the size and the overall strength and numbers of the program, I've just got to go with Carbondale on this one.
I'll go on record. I think Murphy's going to make the playoffs this year. There's just no doubt in my mind they're going to get it. It's not going to happen with a win this week. I don't think Carbondale should beat Murphy at most every year in football. Football is a game of enrollment and size, and I know Murphy's going to have a good season, I think, but Carbondale's just got too much. I think as far as their athletes, Murphy has athletes too. Carbondale just has more of them, and Carbondale has more size. So I'm going to go with Carbondale in this one. Moving on to the Black Diamond, this is kind of one of those games, El Dorado at Carmi. It's one of the big early season matchups, and the Black Diamond, you can have a really tough game and then 3 or 4 that are kind of blowouts. So this is one we really want to look at. El Dorado, Hampton's got them really going in the right direction, but Carmi may be the best team in the conference. I'm going to go ahead and pick right now Carmi. Your thoughts, Les?
You're right. Brandon Hampton has that team going in the right direction. They just the attitude on the sideline has just been different. It used to be indifferent on the sideline at El Dorado. I covered a couple games over there last year, and it was pretty intense. The kids are getting into it. Dylan Roberts is a nice, hard-nosed high school football player. He's going to rack up a lot of yards for El Dorado. But Carmi, that team they had last year, as I mentioned earlier, basically they had some good seniors, but the sophomores carried the load a lot of the times. Chase Saylor is going to be one of the best football players in Southern Illinois this year. In case you don't know who Chase Saylor is, he was a sophomore quarterback last year, also played defensive back. He's a good thrower, hard-nosed runner, good leader. Just mark that name down. Chase Saylor is going to be a very fine football player.
And I believe he was the MVP of the conference as a sophomore. So, Pete, your thoughts, Carmi or El Dorado?
Like Les said, this was a tough pick. You like El Dorado, obviously, for Roberts and where they're going as a program. But at the same point, if you want to build a great football team, you got to start in two places, head coach and quarterback. Carmi has that, but I have some questions with Carmi up front. They graduated a couple of All-South linemen, and I just have a feeling that El Dorado can come in here and pull this one out. It's probably going to be close, but I'm going to stick with El Dorado on this one.
The game was actually very close last year. If it hadn't been for a penalty or an injury, I forget exactly what happened. But Carmi got a really big play that allowed them to pull out that win last year. So El Dorado's, they'll give them a battle.
We go to DuQuoin next. They host Highland, who is a much bigger school, but they had a bad year last year. DuQuoin beat them pretty good. And the Indians didn't have a bad year, I guess by their standards they did. They still finished 5-4, but with the wacky playoff system and number of points and schedule and all that, they didn't make the playoffs. I think DuQuoin will bounce back and get a big win here. They've got a ton of seniors. I think they've got 45 upperclassmen. That's a lot. So I'm going to pick DuQuoin. What are your thoughts, Pete?
Obviously, with DuQuoin, you got to wonder how motivated are they after last season not making the playoffs, because for the longest time the motivating factor for a lot of senior classes was they didn't want to be the class that ends the streak. Well, now that's happened and gone, so where's the mental focus at? And I think DuQuoin can really get back to it, get back in the playoffs, and it starts by winning this game. I picked DuQuoin.
Les?
Yeah, Highland is a program trying to get back on its feet. They had a first-year coach last year. Warnicki is back this year. You read the football preview that we have in the newspaper this week about DuQuoin, and they're talking about getting back to the playoffs and that being a big motivating factor. And I think it will be. Al Martin has been around long enough, and he knows his way around the block, obviously. I think the Indians will be very well prepared, and I think they're just going to have too much for Highland.
All right, final game, Mount Carmel, a big run, I believe, to the state championship game last year they played in it. And they beat AJ in the quarterfinals of the playoffs. They travel to Harrisburg, and what's usually a fairly interesting matchup, but Mount Carmel's usually really, really tough. I know they lost a lot from last year, and Harrisburg has quite a bit back. I think Harrisburg's going to win this one, and it's probably a good thing if they do win it this year, because it seems like they've had quite a bit of trouble with Mount Carmel in recent years.
Didn't they win the first matchup last year on an interception by Roper?
I don't remember, but
the time keeps running. I don't know if that was one last year or 2 years ago.
When I think Mount Carmel, Harrisburg, I tend to favor Mount Carmel a little bit generally, but I think Harrisburg, this is their year to make a little bit of noise. I think the Bulldogs will get them. Les?
I just went with Mount Carmel simply for the reason that you articulated. Mount Carmel has just historically been so good that until somebody beats them, to me it's just proven that you can beat them. They're a perennial power. This is going to be a very good Harrisburg team, but if the Bulldogs win, more power to them. I was wrong, but I'm going to go with Mount Carmel.
Pete?
I'm going to pick Harrisburg in this one. I mean, like you mentioned, Scott, they lost a lot of seniors. They got a new offense this year. I talked with Harrisburg coach Jason Roper not too long ago, and he said that Mount Carmel's what they call Gatorade Bowl, essentially their little preseason scrimmage, got rained out this year, so they didn't have as much time to scout Mount Carmel as they usually do. So could that affect this matchup? Of course. But I think that with Harrisburg, with 10 starters, especially having 2 and 3 sport athletes, that gives them the edge in this contest, so I'll go with the Bulldogs.
All right, and that'll just about wrap it up for this week. Obviously, first week there'll probably be a lot of fumbles, a lot of missed assignments, a lot of yelling from the coaches because everybody's, just been practicing for about 2 weeks.
A lot of missed picks.
So, that doesn't need to be really pointed out, does it? But anyway, that's it for this week. Join us back here next week, and we'll talk about week 2. Thanks for watching.